I want to discuss with you today a cosmic idea. How the space revolution that's currently happening as I'm speaking to you right now, how that is critical to our future here on planet Earth. Thought experiments are really powerful. So let's engage in a thought experiment together. There is no better example than Albert Einstein and his use of thought experiments that led to his theories of relativity that fundamentally transformed our understanding of cosmology. And these theories, in fact, have been observationally confirmed. Imagine you are traveling in outer space. Appearing before you is a light over the horizon, filled with blue and white colors. And you see before you planet Earth in its entirety. The fragility of the planet against the harshness of outer space. A thin atmosphere that envelops the planet, that provides us a habitat and a home here. What would you experience? What would you think? As a thought experimenter, I have reflected on this over 3 levels of analysis. 1 being cosmological, 2 being global, and 3 at the individual level. At the cosmological level, I see here an Earth embedded into the fabric of the universe, of the cosmos, of space-time as theorized by Albert Einstein. Integrated into that. Astrophysicists inform us that within the centers of massive stars, when they die off, all the heavy elements are fused. This suggests a deep connection into the cosmic forces of creation, because it is these heavy elements that constitute all of geology and biology. At the global level, the experiences of the Apollo astronauts are informative. They journeyed to the moon. During the Apollo 8 mission, which did not land on the moon, but went into orbit around the moon, humans saw for the first time, in real time, an image of Earth from another planetary body, this being the moon, rising above the lunar horizon. An Earthrise image. This led to one of the Apollo astronauts to state, paraphrasing him, "We came all this way to explore the moon, only to discover ourselves, to discover planet Earth." What is this discovery? It's a discovery of a one Earth, a holistic, interconnected entity. It suggests that reality is a connected worldview. And that separation is really an illusion. At the individual level of analysis, narratives are really important to consider. Narratives are our myths, stories, and ideas that frame human instinct, human behavior, structure human thought. My narrative is one of a scholar practitioner, thought experimenter, in the aerospace sciences, focused on the exploration and development of outer space. We all have our narratives. The question here is, can this image of the whole Earth, can this shift our narrative? Of those who have flown into outer space, the answer to that question is a profound yes. The author and philosopher Frank White, who interviewed dozens and dozens of astronauts who had flown in outer space, came to the conclusion they all experienced what he termed an overview effect. This overview effect is a profound shift in cognition of connection to the entirety of planet Earth all at once. An overwhelming sensation of connection. So we see here through this short thought experiment together that the space revolution, by taking more and more people to outer space, can shift our narrative to one of connection, a connected worldview, to counter the idea of disconnection. Disconnection has not been good for the planet, and I'll get more to that later. But first we must consider, how can we validate this experience, this potential for narrative shift? We need a validation. Knowledge systems that humans have created are a powerful tool of validation. Science is one of those tools. Through science, we can validate this view. So I want to share with you today a unified science concept or construct that kind of validates the idea of a connected worldview. According to Thomas Kuhn, in his book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, this would represent a paradigm shift. That is, a cognitive shift in our understanding of physical and natural processes. So let's examine this paradigm shift. What would this be? Well, in the world of physics, this is often referred to as the theory of everything. A theory that would connect what we view as separate entities, the four fundamental forces of everything: the strong force, the weak force, light, electromagnetism, and gravity. And it would bridge the very, very small, that which occurs within inside the atom, the subatomic world, with the very large, that which occurs at scales beyond that, and even cosmological scales. But beyond this, we need to reconsider our fundamental assumptions of a unified science framework or construct. And there are four that we can consider here. Four postulates. The first is that all matter and energy within the universe is an integrated, holistic dimension. There is no separation. This counters that notion of separation, that things are disconnected. We talked earlier about the connected versus disconnected worldview, so we have to rethink that assumption. The second is that intelligence itself, right, framed by our narratives, intelligence itself is embedded into the fabric of the universe. It's part and parcel of the universe. It's not something separate. And this intelligence provides a structuring and ordering to all physical and natural processes. That counters the more dominant perception today, or assumption today, that there is no innate intelligence and things occur randomly. Physical and natural processes are a result of random interactions. Third is the idea there's a balance of order. There's a cosmic dance, sort of to speak, going on in the universe. A balance of order between increasing and decreasing order. This counters a fundamental assumption that's still rooted in physics, that all systems will tend to greater disorder or dissolution or chaos, known as entropy. And lastly, that what we view as empty space, that is the space between objects, is really full of potential energy at the smallest of scales. Countering the idea that empty space is essentially a vacuum, which is technically low density and low pressure, devoid of much energy. So now that I've shared with you how the space revolution could potentially shift our narrative with the image of the Earth to one of a connected worldview, and how science can validate that, we need to consider, how can this be manifested? How can we make this happen? Well, to start, I need to provide the context of the problem. According to intelligent civilization theory, all intelligent civilizations, like ours, will be driven by a need for more and more resources and energy. At some point on their evolution, they will reach a point of possible destruction. The less hopeful message is that we are at that point today. We have reached that stage in our evolution due to global climate change, or what we characterize more clearly, human-driven or anthropogenic climate change. Humans are now the dominant factor in the near term in terms of climate change. This is threatening our planet, threatening our habitat here on planet Earth. Intelligent civilization theory provides a scale of three types of civilizations. A type 1, our civilization, is confined to its home planet for energy and resources. A type 2 begins to go off Earth, looking to outer space as a source of energy and resources. In our case, this would be our solar system. And a type 3 civilization can do that at galactic scales or larger. Being a type 1 civilization with a more dominant disconnected worldview versus connected worldview, I think underlies the essence of why we have anthropogenic or human-driven climate change. 97% of scientists are certain that in this century we face a climate crisis, a climate emergency that must be addressed now before it's too late. This is a possible global extinction event for planet Earth. Threatens our future here on this planet. Why is this occurring? Well, there are two fundamental reasons why this is taking place. One is that we are greatly exceeding the carrying capacity of planet Earth for our resources. It's a finite system. In the developed world, such as the United States and Europe, we need 5 Earths to sustain our resource and energy needs. Globally, we need 2 Earths on average. That is not sustainable. The second reason has to do with the way in which we get our energy. We get energy from taking carbon out of the Earth that's sequestered within the Earth, burning it and releasing the greenhouse gas of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in that process. That has led to global warming emissions that are greater than anything that's occurred naturally going back nearly 1 million years according to scientific research. That epitomizes the human factor here. It exceeds the natural variability to a great extent, leading to that crisis event, leading to a potential global extinction event. Now, there is no viable planet B, not at least in the near term, this century or probably centuries forward. But I want to leave you now with a hopeful message. And the hopeful message is that we can address this problem by becoming a space-faring civilization. It's not the only solution, but it provides an optimal solution for us. We can become that type 2 civilization that intelligent civilization theory puts forward, a space-faring species. This space-faring revolution that's ongoing offers us a way to go off Earth for our resources and energy needs far into the future. There's not much of a finite carrying capacity when we begin to consider the solar system, at least relative to planet Earth. In the next 2 to 3 years, we'll be back on the lunar surface through the NASA-led Artemis program with international partners and private aerospace companies. Humans will live and work and engage in research on the lunar surface and begin to use the resources there, to live there, but also to use those resources for energy. One example, on the lunar surface, we know that there's a critical fuel of fusion energy that exists there in abundance relative to Earth. We are near mastering fusion energy research. There's been some fundamental breakthroughs recently in that area. The space revolution as well has concepts and ideas to begin to look to asteroids that are near Earth, what are called near-Earth object asteroids, that are relatively easy to get to from a standpoint of space technology. In these asteroids are all the elements and resources we need to sustain our technological civilization. But not only that, there are concepts that have been around for decades that could come to fruition soon of large-scale space-based solar power stations in outer space, where we could capture the sun's energy on a renewable basis and beam it back to planet Earth. We can also contemplate going to outer space if the cost drops enough, and it's dropped dramatically, at least 20 times, given this space revolution going on right now with privatization and economics in mind. We can go to space for off-Earth industrial processing sometime this century. And if the postulate of the unified science idea is correct, we could potentially unlock this energy that's deeply embedded at the smallest of scales within the universe as a whole. So you may think we need a majority to do this. Well, an interesting study put forward by social scientists came up with a 3.5% rule. What is this 3.5% rule? Well, they surveyed a 106-year history of social protest movements throughout the world from 1900 to 2006. Over 300 of them they evaluated. And in every single case, when 3.5% of people demanded change, change occurred. Looking around you today, that suggested if about 10 or 12 of you stood up, we could change this room. That suggests that all is possible if we become advocates and supporters of the spacefaring revolution. To quote my late father, who worked in this field as well, any civilization that does not challenge the impossible is doomed to fail. And the impossible today is the exploration of outer space. All is really possible. Science actually confirms this, very interestingly. There's something called the quantum observation principle, quantum being the subatomic, or a quantum observation theory. Within this theory, which has an observational basis, all realities really are possible and exist in the quantum world. And as we talked about earlier, all realities exist. What we call reality or interpret reality through our narratives is simply a collapse of one reality possibility at one point in time when there is an interaction or an observation taking place. That implies that we can manifest any reality that we choose. So let's manifest a reality of becoming a spacefaring species to ensure our future here on planet Earth where we can all thrive together. Thank you.